So dudes, this is my official Defender tier list for Operation Deadly Omen. So this one is a little bit more elaborate because this is a template that I made a long time ago, but looks a little cleaner in my opinion. It finds a way to hide in my Windows Explorer, but this time it's here again. So, you know, it's coming out to shine. It's a nice day out. I'm gonna keep the window open, so if you hear like some birds or something, that's why. So, without further ado, Operation Deadly Omen Defenders. Once again, this video is sponsored by Keeps. Keeps.com is a service that helps men deal with male pattern baldness. The name of the game is convenience, and you can do everything from the comfort of your computer desk. Everything is uniquely tailored to your specific needs. So it's not necessarily like hair loss medication. You can also get volumizing shampoos and conditioners to keep the hair you have on your head looking pretty. I woke up this way. Keeps is all about personalization. They'll get you on a call with somebody who will give you a personalized treatment plan. Keeps is discreet too, and you can get your treatments in non-branded packaging. It's affordable too, typically half the cost of traditional pharmacy prices. So it's affordable, it's convenient, and it works. Hair loss stops with Keeps. To get a special offer, go to keeps.com/Gregor or click the link in the description. That's keeps.com/Gregor. And thanks again to Keeps for sponsoring this video. All right, I am going to try to do this in one take, so let's see how this goes. All right, Kapkan. So we're going to start from the vanilla operators, and then we'll work our way up all the way to the more recent seasons with operators like Tubarao. So I'm going to start off with the Russians. Kapkan pretty much applies to any site. There's no situation where it's like, oh no, we can't bring a Kapkan. Like, he's going to be useful pretty much every single time he's brought. He has a very good floor. The only problem with him is that he doesn't have a particularly high ceiling compared to some ops. So it really depends on what you're specifically trying to do. If you have a particular piece of map geometry where you can pull off like that triple Kapkan, a good example would be Cafe, that bathroom door if you're playing the top floor site, right when you're coming out of pixel. People tend to sprint right past that because at the point that they get pixel control, they're usually going to try to go through bathroom and then try to get more control really aggressively because of that timing. So they're not going to be as likely to hit that, to check that trap, because when you're out in Whitehall, looking at it is really just, it's a recipe for disaster. So he gets widespread usage on a number of different sites, and he has no downside when he gets used on those sites. And he has pretty good guns. So because of the aggressive gun fighting meta, he's going to get a pretty decent amount of picks. Tachanka. Now, Tachanka is in a weird spot because theoretically his fire grenade launcher should be something like an alternative to smoke. But the reason that it's not is because it's, you know, it's very clunky, it's slow, you have to reload each of the grenades manually. It's just kind of a pain in the butt. And there are other operators that are just a little bit more efficient when it comes to that kind of job. The one exception I will give to Tachanka is when he is using the area denial from a long distance. The advantage that the launcher has is that it fires in a much more accurate arc over a longer distance than you can with smoke. And theoretically with Goyo, right? Goyo can't really pull off the same kind of area deny because if he puts his, like, good example is Villa 90. You can't put a Goyo like all the way at the end of books and all the way towards red because someone's just going to shoot it, right? It's like, okay, what's the point? Tachanka can do that. Tachanka can theoretically hold both of those corners of the maps by himself, right, if he doesn't get swung. So he kind of has to put himself out there a little bit, and that's, you know, one of the tricky parts. But at the same time, if you're playing on a site where there's a lot of ground to be covered, you can get creative with it. And I actually do get a little bit of a kick out of trying to make Tachanka strats work from time to time. I have gotten a little bit of success with him just by, you know, setting up the site in a kooky kind of way with the machine gun and just catching people by surprise. And I do appreciate that about him. I do think that he's a very siege-ish character, but for competitive purposes, he just doesn't really get that much play. The machine gun's fun to use, though. Okay, Bandit. So Bandit doesn't get picked as much as the other wall denial characters, which we're obviously going to get around to. The big thing is that he has to be up against the wall and then go through the animation, right? That's like one particular disadvantage. He does have a really good, or pretty solid, I should say, submachine gun primary, and he does have C4. He's a 3-speed. He's a speedy character. He's a good gunfighter, and he has a little bit of utility on the side. So compared to a lot of roamers that are just kind of like, okay, like, yeah, cool, I have a gun, and that's kind of it. Bandit actually doesn't have that problem. So he fleshes out a composition when you need, you know, that supplementary wall deny. Jager, you might be surprised to see he's not as high as he usually is, or at least I guess, you know, if we go back to like circa 2020. Yeah, Jager is not as flexible as Wamai right now. I am kind of I'm kind of spoiling some of these picks as we go along. Yeah, like you have to put the thing down. It's stationary, right? You're not gonna. Chances are you're not gonna rotate an ADS over. You're just gonna put it in that particular spot and then just stick to it. However, for bunker heavy sights, you know, he's still pretty good, right? You know, like Border Armory is a pretty good example where you have to have that grenade zapping. Not to mention, if the Jaeger ADSs aren't dealt with, right, if they aren't blown up, they will recharge, right? And so you can theoretically get more value over the course of a round. His gun is still a pain in the butt to use. You know, maybe one day they'll fix it. I really hope. But as far as I can tell, that's just kind of a holdover from when they were really hitting him with the Nerf bat during the utility simulator about 4 years ago. Which, that's just, you know, like, I didn't have to say that out loud. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Rook. Okay, so a bit of a ranked pick. So something I'm doing a little bit different with these tier lists is that I'm trying to incorporate like rankedisms just a little bit more to make them more palatable, right? To make the pill a little easier to swallow for everybody. That doesn't mean it's always going to go down. Nice, but, you know, we'll make it work. Rook's a pretty solid rank character. Something else that, you know, we're not really talking about because I haven't, to be quite honest, I haven't been playing a lot of this particular season. I've been playing, just not as much. I've been working on other projects. But yeah, so Rook used to have a big advantage in the whole like scope category, and now a lot of people have ACOG. Rook still has ACOG now, and that doesn't necessarily mean that he got shadow nerfed, right? Because everybody else has ACOG. He benefits from the ACOG particularly well because with his armor, he can fight from a really, really long distance, and it's a lot harder to hit the head on a target when it's really far away because, you know, perspective moment, right? So because of math, right, he gets a little bit more out of his armor because if he fights from a distance, he's going to make himself a smaller hitbox and a little bit more difficult to take down. And he also helps out his entire team. With Rook, you want to get as far in the back as possible and just snipe people with the MP5. That's what makes him work. And because of that, you know, the fact that he can help his entire team while he's doing it, make himself a little bit more difficult to take down, I really do appreciate playing some Rook on occasion. He's a fun rank character. Doc. Okay, now Doc, some people are going to say, well, why isn't Doc as high as Rook? Well, you know, because Doc has an active component to his gadget as opposed to Rook. So, yeah, Doc can stim himself. Doc can heal other teammates. That's great. But he does have to get the pistol out. There's gadgetry stuff. He has to reload it. It's, you know, the whole process of it is a little bit slower and a little bit more clunky. Whereas with Rook, you just get a flat health buff without, you know, any particular input on your part. And Doc does. That's not to say that, you know, Doc doesn't benefit. But I do believe that there are more situations where you will see the advantage of Rook than you will see the advantage of Doc. Just because with Rook, everybody's going to get into a gunfight at any particular moment in time, right? That's just the given of Siege. But with Doc, you know, how many times are you going to get the heal off? How many times are you going to be in a position where you can heal yourself and you get the overheal boost? Those moments are powerful when they do happen, but just because they don't happen quite as frequently, you know, I can't justify like putting it up here. If they did happen more frequently, I'd put them up here, but you know, I really can't. Yeah. Pulse. This is you know, some people are going to be like, okay, what the heck? So Pulse is in a weird spot. He gets basically no comp play, which I was shocked to find. You know, when I usually reference the Siege GG operator charts whenever I make these lists to kind of coincide and contextualize my decision making for these lists. And yeah, I mean, like I think the aggressive intel gathering meta especially for the defense, right? You have to get out and hold as much map control as possible and just get really aggressive and, Call of Duty it. Pulse has to go back and forth on the scanner, which makes him very vulnerable. So, the scanner doesn't have a particularly high range. Of all the, scanny characters, Pulse is the lowest. Solis is a little bit higher, and IQ has the highest. Pulse, you pretty much have to be the floor below somebody to get much value out of it, which is cool, right? When you have the scenario, when you have, Villa being a good example, Pulse is really good on that site below if they're doing a Villa statue hit because of all the wooden floors. You can floor bang, C4. But yeah, for the most part, if you need a dedicated roamer, you're not going to play Pulse, right? You're going to play somebody else. So that's kind of why. He's still good on some sites, but he's not useful on all of them. Castle. Okay, so Castle actually got a shadow buff recently. He's still solid on a number of sites. The reason that he got shadow buffed is because of Azami's bullet nerf. Now, Azami's still very good, but now Castle kind of has that, that little advantage where Azami can't just completely take his job, right? So a good example would be bank couches, those double windows that face towards the windows that people like to rappel on the outside. If you're familiar with what I'm talking about, it's not uncommon for Azami to keep those off. In addition to the chandelier, right? Azami very good on that site. Combo up with the castle, and then it's very difficult to take the kinds of rappel gunfights that you want. Now, Azami can't just steal that job, right? She can't put the Kiba barrier up because someone's just going to shoot it. So Castle is bulletproof completely. And in that particular instance, that's an example of where Castle still kind of shines a little bit. So yeah, I mean, everybody knows what Castle does at this point. He plugs up sight lines. He makes it, he forces you to use utility. He has 4 of them. He can force people to waste time and utility, pathing, right? He's a very good character if you know what you're doing. All right, Smoke. Not nearly as high as he used to be, because we need this more, aggressive gunfighting kind of style, right? However, for sites that are still very anchor heavy, like Cafe, bottom floor, Oregon Bunker, a couple others, that kind of have that similar sort of linear kind of flow, you're definitely going to need a Smoke. So Smoke, as far as I could tell from NAL recently, was hovering at about a 33% pick rate. So that's not every single freaking round, but it's still, it's still pretty solid. And I need to, my sinuses are messing me up, so hold on a second. Okay, yeah, I really, I tried to do the one take thing, but the change of the seasons, you can feel it kind of build up, as you're talking, and the nasalness just keeps compounding. Yeah, and that was just really not, that was not the play. I don't think I could have done that for another 30 minutes. Yeah, so Smoke is just, you can't really roam with him as effectively as other characters. Hey, I'm not going to knock the Pox Unlock strat. If you're watching this, I like the Smoke roam, but just for the purpose of, telling people what to, which characters tend to get more value versus other ones, that's one of the reasons where it's okay, I can't really justify putting him super, super high because that's just not the way the game is played right now. Mute. He's the main wall deny guy, shotgun, right? Similar kind of situation with Smoke, although even Mute gets more picks now because, well, I actually shouldn't say he's the main wall deny. There's another main wall deny if you use process of elimination to figure that out, but he's one of the main wall denies, if not the secondary one. So, yeah. Shotgun, C4, right? Just really one of the best anchors in the game. Strong utility character. Not much else to talk about there. Frost. Good for window vault heavy maps like Chalet. She has a really good gun. She has a utility shotgun in a very similar kind of position like Mute, except it's a secondary gun. Has a deployable shield, which is good in and of itself. Still, in my opinion, the best secondary gadget in the game. Can completely change the way that you hold a particular room. Completely changes the dynamic for holding the map control. So yeah, Frost, pretty solid. Just maybe not, don't bring her all the time. Might be some better options, here and there. Okay, Valk. So Valk is in an interesting position because you don't actually really see her a lot in competitive, but the reason for that is because she gets banned frequently. So without pick and ban, she'd be busted right now. She's still kind of borderline busted. But I don't think she really needs too much of a change. This is one of those weird situations where it's like, you can't really like do anything to Valk without completely changing the way her character works. The whole thing with the cameras, right, is that she benefits, she assists rather aggressive roam comps. So she's really good at like keeping that map presence, keeping that map awareness, that situational awareness that you need, that flexibility that you need to adapt to the positioning of the attack. And she can also play from C4 from below, which she doesn't necessarily have to do. Other characters can also benefit from that. She provides value to her entire team, and she can leverage some of herself. Instant guaranteed value with the camera placements, and she also has utility that will last pretty much the entire round if you place it correctly. So she's really freaking good. There's a reason that she gets banned all the time. Cav. Okay, yeah, look, I get it, right? Like, I don't know, look, play what you want. Cav is Cav, right? Like, she's the ranked operator. She punishes bad coordination, which is something that happens in rank pretty often. She basically gets no picks in competitive for that particular reason. But obviously, if you were playing competitive, you wouldn't be watching my videos, right? So that's just kind of how it is. And maybe a couple of you play comp, I don't know. Maybe let's go professional. I don't think there's any... I don't know. Maybe a couple of you guys watch my videos in the pro circuit. I highly doubt it, but if you do, hey, like, don't let me stop you from playing Cav in NAL stage 1. I don't know. Good luck. Have fun with it. Yeah, it punishes bad comms and coordination, and that's how it is. Echo's in a weird spot. He had there's so many things that have to happen for the gadget to work anymore. It's still pretty solid as a pocket strat. He does get a lot out of the Supernova now, which is really cool. I like running the shotgun on Echo. It's pretty strong. Even the Bearing 9, tends to, I can get a couple of picks with that. And he's fun, right? Like, he's a fun character. I think that in the hands of a skilled player, you could theoretically like put him up here. But once again, when we're referencing, competitive charts, like some operators compared to other operators, he's just kind of like, okay, like there's too many variables, right? There's too many variables. There's too much crap that can happen in a round that's gonna potentially not make the yokai work. You have to know what you're doing. You have to have a plan. And for that, the coordination aspect, it's a little bit more difficult to justify putting him much higher. Okay, Mira. So not nearly as powerful as she used to be. I remember, Utility Simulator, she was like way up here. But, she's had a couple of nerfs. She did also get a nerf relatively recently with the Ashe and Kali Lances being able to break the window from a distance, which I honestly don't mind. I honestly don't mind her being in this position because she had so much influence. She had, in my opinion, kind of an undue amount of influence where it was like there were so many sites where it's just like, dude, like you can't not bring a Mira, right? Like she has to be brought. She either has to be brought or banned, and that was kind of lame. I don't like that kind of meta. I don't like, especially for defense, especially in a defender-sided game. I don't want the game to turn into like a freaking, it's like you're trying to hit like Normandy Beach, right? An Oregon blue bunker, right? Like I think that should happen every once in a while, not all the time. So yeah, there's more counterplay. And she's still great. Like, she's still a really, really good character, especially for quarter heavy sight lines. She's really good on coastline. There's pretty much like all the main sites on coastline you can justify bringing a Mira. And for that reason, she's still up here. Okay, guess I have to cut that. All right, Lesion. So this is another plug and play kind of character. If you don't know what else to bring, he has good guns. He has a pocket shotgun now, which is pretty neat. For some reason, I keep forgetting to swap it over. I don't know why. I think I just really like the pistol a lot. It's honestly not. It's actually one of the better handguns if you compare it stat wise. Not a lot of people know that. He has util that lasts the entire round. Pretty much, theoretically and in practice the entire round. He has a ton of them. He can throw them and actually get them, to pinpoint positions now with that little feature with a little white line that indicates where it's going to go. That's really cool, right? I really like that a lot because that makes it easier for you to go, hey, I want to put a Lesion mine on this particular door from a distance, but I don't know if I can hit that. So now you don't have to worry about that anymore, right? You get a lot more flexibility with the throwing, which is really, really cool. Honestly, like any character that throws anything got a massive buff recently. Like that's kind of, it's like a really, really interesting passive kind of buff. So yeah, good guns, util that lasts the entire round. It's pretty much never going to be a situation where at least one person doesn't run into one of your mines. So yeah. Okay, Ella, I don't get it, man. Like I don't know why. I don't know why they did what they did with Ella. Because there's just so many things about her where it's like, why did we do this? Why did we just make other characters that could, are just better? Like the problem with the mine, right? The mine doesn't really have that much impact anymore. Like people can just like run right into it and keep doing the same thing that they were already doing. There's no crowd control. There's no like animation denial. Right? There's no, like, it doesn't do anything. Right? It just runs into it and then it kind of like it throws, like goop on your screen, and you can still shoot back. It's just kind of like, okay, it's a sound cue at this point, which is like fine. That's cool, that's useful information, but like she basically just has like 3 proximity alarms as a gadget, which is super, super lame. And her gun has so much recoil compared to other ones. It's like really difficult to use. I play Ella just for the fun of it. Like I play her for, the Scorpion, it's like sometimes it's like a fun gun to, style on people with. And the shotgun is actually not that bad, especially after the recent shotgun changes and the extended barrel. So it's like, okay, please do something. Like, I don't know. Okay, Vigil. So I've been playing a lot of Vigil in ranked. This is another character where it's like, okay, yeah, I actually, I can see a lot of hypotheticals for him. And then I went and I checked the competitive charts, and then it's like, wait, he's not getting any picks, and yeah, he's really not. The main reason for that is because like the advantage you get out of the like vigiling, especially during like a heavy like lion roam clear, for example, is not gonna happen, 100% of the time, right? And competitive, people are just gonna like, they don't care, right? They're gonna know where you are and they're gonna drone you out. Even if you go on the cloak, they're gonna contextualize it based off of other information that they have previously. Sound cues, right? Like the coordination level is just a completely different thing. But in ranked, you can get away with it more. So it's one of those situations where it's like you can kind of rely on gaps in the comms of the enemy with a character like Vigil right now, and he's fun. I do really enjoy playing him. He's actually my favorite roamer to play right now. But yeah, kind of a ranked character. Lots of ranked characters in this tier and C tier. Okay, Alibi in D tier. Yeah. Look, I get it. The utility is just not there anymore. She has a bailiff pistol, which is cool, but aside from that, you're really not going to get much leverage out of the holograms compared to other roamers, right? That offer more guaranteed help to your team. And there are other characters with comparable gunfighting. Other characters like Vigil, characters like Bandit, characters like Warden, right? We're not gonna try to find a way to fit an Alibi in the comp when we don't need to, right? We're probably just going to bring something else, and that's kind of where it is with her. Maestro, B tier, again, pretty solid character. Defense has a lot of pretty solid options, right? Like a lot of options that you can like rotate around. He's good on a variety of sites. He has a lot of flexibility with free cameras, so it's not the end of the world if he loses one anymore, which means, you can put one a little bit further away from the site, and then all of a sudden, right, like, that's a pretty big difference, right? So if you lost a camera before, that was half of your intel gone, right? That was half of your Maestro gone. Now when you lose one camera, that's just a third of your information coverage. So that's a pretty big deal, right? Like we don't really think about it that way because it's just sort of like, oh wow, this person found a way to say free is more than 2. That was a comment I got a lot when I was talking about it because Siege players are morons. But it was like the whole thing, right? Is that when you can add another camera to your info network, that's a redundancy, and any kind of redundancy that you have in your information network is good, because that's the difference between having information and not having information, depending on the context. So you can put a camera a little bit further away into something like Cafe Bakery, and now you have two cameras that you can have in the site. So that's the difference between looking at both sites or just looking at one site. And then if you can't look at one site, that means that somebody might be able to plant on that site. So yeah, pretty good buff for him, and I think he, you can leverage him and get creative with the setups nowadays, especially with that bailiff. Clash, okay, very strange character. Look, if you know what you're doing, I'm not gonna stop you, right? But I very rarely see, even at like high elo, I very rarely see Clash actually like used to her best. Again, because of the coordination thing, right? The whole thing with Clash is that you get in a position, you hold people, right? You get the electricity down, you CC, and then people play off of that. And then very often, right, that's not exactly what ends up happening. So it's really, really hard to justify her unless you have a really particular idea of what's going on. And for that, I can't place her very high. Okay, I am not beating the took multiple takes allegations. The mucus monster is just out in full force. I didn't get it's one of those where my roommate had something and he was KO'd, and then it's like, okay, now everybody has it, right? Like when your roommate gets sick and then everybody else is like assumes like, okay, now we're gonna get sick. I didn't get like really bad, but I think like my immune system was just kind of like locked in and kicked it while I was asleep or something, because I'm just like, I'm alert and I'm like awake, but I definitely still think I have like residual effect. Anyway, I'm done yapping. So Kaed, I said it right? Yeah, so one of the main wall deny guys, I would say almost, he would be the wall denial guy if it weren't for pick and ban. Mute ends up taking his spot a lot because of pick and ban. He can deny hatches, which is already like big. Hatch play is very, very useful. Almost, yeah, I shouldn't even say almost. It is like the most important aspect of a particular site hit sometimes. So he can deny that, and that's very strong, especially on sites like Bank Basement, Cafe Bottom Floor, right? He can cut off that particular that other entry kind of advantage you might have for like a freezer hit, particular kind of timing, right? He denies pathing, right? Hatches and keeping hatches closed denies pathing. That's big for timings. So he has tricking ability from a distance if you can pull that off if you're the GOAT. Good guns. C4, like, what else do you need, right? Like, he has, utility with, like, he can set up the site, and he can fight from a distance with an ACOG with the same gun, and it hits like a truck. Like, it's actually a pretty good gun. So, yeah, TCSG, C4, really good. Mozzie. Okay, so we got another character where it's like, oh my gosh, gee, why'd you put him so low? And, yeah, like, I get it, because, like, I like Mozzie. I like his guns, but again, like, when we're just, like, we look at the comp charts, it's just like, dude, like, there's just other options where it's like, he's not completely, like, super 100% optimal, so he just gets foregone, right? That's just kind of how it is. Again, like, please don't walk away from this. This happens every time with these videos, right? Like, please don't walk away from this going like, oh my gosh, my favorite character, isn't up here, I can't play them. Like, no, that's not the purpose of these videos, right? The purpose of these videos is to, like, give a quick at-a-glance comparison of guaranteed value lists more than anything else, really. And Mozzie does have a lot of situations where it's like, okay, yeah, I can actually, I got something out of the Mozzie drone. One of the reasons, especially in comp too, is that you need to be constantly on the move. You need to be gunfighting. You need to have your gun up. And what are you doing when you're driving around a drone? You don't have your gun up, right? Like, that's downtime. That's downtime, right? You're not helping. You're not helping when you're moving a drone, right? That is to have something to help later. That's not the same thing as helping now, right? Does that make sense? So compared to other characters, it's just sort of like, okay, what's going on? C4 is cool. Oh, my water bottle. Yeah, so just kind of, I like comboing up with mute sometimes though. Run the SSG strat back sometimes. Warden, hey, like, look, you know, people were gonna say, oh no, you know, he's useless now. No, like, he's still a good, solid mobile roamer, right? Like, and he can also deny Ying, which is big. He can look through smoke. He can deny the util, right? He can deny the tactical util that the attack is going to use to try and get things moving. And he can sit on a position and just go, no, you know, like, I don't care. All right, I'm gonna use my glasses, and I'm Big Joeing. Like, I don't give a crap. Yeah, pretty solid, right? Like, he's just, you know, he's I think he's always gonna be a pretty solid roamer, you know, relatively. I mean, this video could age badly one day, but I don't know. I think he's still, you know, he's still pretty good, and he gets picked in comp for a reason because he just, you know, there's no like particularly strong downside. Goyo, okay, still solid for a number of a very wide range of bunker, quarter heavy maps. You know, we've used those words a couple of times. Same thing with Mira. Mira and Goyo synergize off of each other so well. Put a Goyo up, Oregon bunker, right? You put that one up there on the main door, right? That's my default strat. Main door for blue, freezer, the laundry plant. And then if you want to get, you know, if you're feeling like you're having a little fun, you can put 2 Goyos on the same door. And then if you shoot one, that's 20 seconds. Wait, shoot the second one, 40 seconds. So yeah, like that's, you know, at times a potential 40 seconds of deny unless people run into the fire. And that's, you know, pretty strong stuff. So yeah, I like Goyo a lot. Wamai, the quintessential grenade catch right now. Flexible, applicable to many sites because of the white line that you get, you know, the projection line when you're going to try to throw the gadget. He gets a lot out of that too now, right? He has more flexibility in terms of that because now you don't have to eyeball it. You can just see, okay, I need to put a disc here. If I'm playing Clubhouse Rafters, I need to put a disc here because now the wall is open. So instead of trying to eyeball it like through the window or whatever, and then it gets caught on like some crap, you can see exactly where it's going to go. And that's really, really cool. He has good guns. MB5K. Now it has an ACOG. Thanks Ubisoft. Lots of defenders have ACOGs. Wamai is now one of them. Just really good, right? Like, works in pretty much, you know, he's a drag and drop kind of character, even more so than anybody else. And, you know, it's one of those situations where it's like, it's kind of becoming a Jager thing, right? Like, we need a Wamai, and, you know, you can't really ban him because you're not going to have him the next round. So it's like, yeah, you know, see what you got to do. Oryx. Weird spot, you know, like a lot of these characters. His hatch jumping is good on some sites, and then it's like, I don't really need this on a lot of other ones. He's a fun ranked operator, but, you know, he's very limited by the map terrain, and that's just kind of how it goes with him. He's really good on bank. There's a lot of hatches on bank. It's a big map. He can traverse it with the dash ability, so he's good there. Malusi. The scope is actually huge. The scope's actually really big for her. Because, you know, she was a 3 armor, and it was just sort of like, okay, like I have an MP5 with a hollow sight. Like, what's going on? Right? Like, now that's not really the case. You know, she's a very, you know, she's gone from being like a dedicated roamer, right? That's what she was, to an anchor, right? She's a site anchor now. She's completely committed and dedicated to that role. Complete and total, you know, role transformation. And that's fine. You know, I think it works for her because, you know, she can play off of the traps, and it works pretty well for her. Depending on the context, the traps actually, you know, tend to do pretty solid, right? They work good on staircases, corridors, just outside of, you know, doors, like entry into the like main site. Pretty solid character, you know, for those particular kinds of reasons. So I'm not saying that she's, you know, going to replace Fenrir. She hasn't. But for the situations in which, you know, you want to have crowd control on a particular doorway, like, hey, I don't want people running through this door and then hitting this particular timing. She's good, right? She's a good site anchor. Aruni. So one thing that's kind of tough with her is that, you know, the gadget doesn't get the same kind of leverage that it used to. It used to be like, oh, wow, you know, like we can get that additional kind of like, you know, gadget zap with the windows. And she's still really good on maps that have a lot of window play. Like Chalet is a great example where I like to play Aruni a lot. But there's a lot of situations where it's like, you know, like I don't I don't really know about this one, right? Like I can justify bringing something else for a different kind of situation, and also because Wamai is just so good right now, right? Like whereas with Aruni, you kind of have to rely on them, you know, throwing the grenade for this particular kind of window. Wamai doesn't have that problem, right? Like Wamai just throws it wherever he wants. Also, something I forgot to mention comparing Wamai and Jager is that Wamai can deny Capital, which is not irrelevant. Now Aruni, kind of similar situation, but it's not an exact 1-to-1, right? So it's not, you know, it's not quite as cut and dry. That being said, she does have sight set up. She's not a completely useless character, right? She's still, you know, she's a solid anchor. But for the reasons, you know, that I listed, for a lot of these other characters with this particular tier, you're going to notice this theme. Like all these characters have situations where they can shine, but it's, you know, it's not going to be like, oh, wow, you know, we really need an Aruni here. We really need a Mozzie here, but like, that's not going to happen unless you have a very specific idea of what you want to do. Her gun's good. The DMR is good with the ACOG, for sure. I do appreciate that. Some people are running the telescopic. I don't know how I feel about it yet. I think that might be just a little bit too much, but, you know. Thunderbird, okay, like, what's going on? I don't know why they took, like, Thunderbird still confuses the heck out of me to this day. I don't understand why they, like, hit her over the head with the Nerf bat so hard. You know, I could see them, like, giving her back her C4 one day or something, but, like, right now, I just, I'm like, what the heck's going on? Yeah, just, like, you know, healing chip damage is cool, especially for sites where there's a lot of verticality and you're going to be getting shot in like the legs and the arms a lot. You know, good for that particular, you know, like border customs and border workshop, right? They're going to do that like bathroom kind of hit or armory, right? Good for that. Good for that when you want to deal, you know, chalet basement, any kind of site where the enemy is going to get vertical, or at least you think they're going to get vertical. Chip damage, I like. Otherwise, I'm like, I don't know. Thorn. She's a fun sleeper pick. You know, she's kind of a better Ella at this point. I like getting tricky with the trap placements. Use the UCK to shoot in, you know, little like cracks and crevices. Get creative with the placement. Throw it on furniture, chandeliers, you know, little crannies, nooks and crannies. Try to get as creative as possible with it. That's how you're going to get the most out of her. Put a bunch of razor blooms in one room, and then you're going to run into it. Then they run into the next one, then they run into the next one, and before you know it, you either have a free pick or they deny their ability to move. Azami, still the GOAT. Still the GOAT. Yeah, pretty good. Not as GOAT as a lot of the S tier characters. You know, I'd put her like borderline, but she's still pretty good. She forces people to sit in the same spot and shoot the barrier now, which is not irrelevant. That is still useful. You know why she's good, right? She can manipulate the map, create the map however she wants, and at the very least, now she's going to force some kind of utility usage, which is still good. That's still an advantage, right? Anytime you can influence player behavior, most of the time that's going to play to your benefit. So with Azami, that's quite all right. Works in a variety of different sites still. Solis, please nerf her. Oh my god. Well, I already know they're nerfing her, but holy crap. I've talked about Solis again and again and again and again and again. Look, it's too much, right? Like she can just completely deny the entire enemy's drone game. It's a massive pain in the butt. Completely changes the way that you have to like approach the attack, and then gives the defense so much map control, right? Like so much ability to just, you know, move around, and they get so much flexibility because they don't have, you know, you can't get information on them. You don't know where they are. You have to clear and manually check every single freaking thing. It's just, it's like, dude, it's annoying. Like it's gotta, you know, just please help. Fenrir, oh my gosh, another character that just needs to, like, he's really annoying because he forces you to adjust to the crosshair placement. He puts the thing on the thing, right? And then when you want to take a gunfight, you can't, right? It's not like a Melusi situation where you can eat the crowd control effect, or with Thorn where you can like back off. Fenrir, right? He has a blinding gadget that makes you less situationally aware, and you have to shoot it to get rid of it. There's no like, you know, with the Thorn trap, it'll activate and then it'll only activate once. With Fenrir, you have to get rid of it or it'll always be there. And it's just, it's really annoying. It's really annoying in ranked, because you just can't take gunfights as confidently as you might in some situations where you really need to. So yeah, he's very flexible, fits into a number of different pretty much every composition. I say a number of every composition you can put a Fenrir in it. He has a shotgun pistol, like he's just really good. All right, and then that, last but not least, Tubarao. So some people, you know, they're like, oh, he got nerfed, he's down here. No. Like, he's still pretty good. You know, he actually does get picked in comps still. He got banned a couple of times. He delays, right? He has delay through any wall, and that's good. It's not as OP as it used to be. And I think it was really smart how they got that nerf out really quickly, so that way we didn't get kind of caught into the culture of him, you know, being OP, and then, you know, when we eventually had to nerf him, people would get mad. But yeah, he's a supplementary timing character, and that's good. I've actually had a couple of situations where that, that ability to deny, the ability to blow up stuff has been a significant pain in the butt. Like bank basement, there was a hit that I was doing for red, right, where, you know, we didn't have that much time. And in the wee final seconds of the round, right, Habana, I tried to get rid of the Mira for the red setup on on bank basement, where you're on the office hatch. Try to get the Mira, and then I can't, because Tubarao has all of his crap. He has all of his stuff that he's been pocketing, and I just can't blow up the Mira. And then it just completely, it totally screwed us. Like, it totally screwed the round, because we could keep the Mira up. And, that's a powerful play. That's still something nice to have when you can deny destruction, even if it's just for a little bit. So, yeah, still a pretty solid B tier character, in my opinion, just not as, as a predominant, an OP, right, as he used to be. And that's Deadly Omen, Defenders. Let me know what you guys thought of this particular list. If you had any standout picks that really, you seem to agree with or maybe disagree with, let me know in the comments, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Okay? Thanks for watching so much. Deuces.